Hi, it's Laura, and we're going to make some more stuff. Or actually, I've kind of made some stuff, sort of, and we're going to continue on. So I showed you the little prototype with my paper towels and cardstock yesterday for the first section of this using fabric fodder type of Beyond Fabric Fodder. That's what it is. Beyond Fabric Fodder book. So, and I am using some Arches watercolor paper as my cover and my inner page. And then I have some canvas, some wool crepe, and I really like this gray edge, salvage edge on there, and some linen cotton stuff. So there's 4 pages here at the front. Then it's got the inner watercolor, and then I've got 8 pages here in the middle, and then the same thing at the back. This is where I had some more of that wool, and I may rearrange the order. Now I did these pieces into separate pieces that then as I finish them, I will connect them together. Maybe I'll use like a little black strip or some ribbon or something in there to connect these pieces, because I didn't want them all to be one full size. I'm sorry, my dog is whining at my feet here. But I did do these wool pieces as all one, and you can do them either way. Now, the size that I decided on for this was 5 by 9. So the pages are either 9 by 10 if you're going to do them all in one piece and then fold them down the center, or you do 2 5 by 9s and we'll connect them together. The inner watercolor, I did those as 9 by 10 3/8. Now, if you don't have big enough watercolor paper or other paper that you're going to be using, those can be done in 2 pieces, to where you can do one piece that has the 3/4 inch channel and the other piece that has that 3/4 inch channel, and then you just layer those 3/4 inch sections on top of each other at the spine for either the outside or the inside. The inside has the 3/8. So the inner one would be 9 by 10 3/8 if it's a one piece, or 2 5 by 9 3/8. And then for the cover, because I made it a little bit taller, I didn't make it narrower because I want to potentially add something onto this edge, or I kind of like my pages hanging out. That one's hanging out an awful lot. But that's a personal preference. You could actually make it 1/2 inch wider, so then that would be 11 3/4. So for the cover, it's 9.5 by 10 3/4, or if you wanted to extend out a little more, make that 11 3/4. And you'll do a 3/4 inch channel down the center of the cover and a 3/8 inch channel down the center of the inner page. If you're doing it in 2 parts, it's 2 by 5.5 by 9 3/4. No, actually, that would be 5. So I added the 1/2 inch. But anyway, that's for the size that I'm doing, which is what I decided to do here, is at 5 by 9. Whatever size you decide to make your pages, that's what size you're going to make them. The spine is always going to be 3/4 and 3/8. Or if you want it to be like a full book and you want it a little bit wider, you could do, and more pages in it, you could do 1/2 inch and 1 inch if you wanted to. But I'm doing 3/8 and 3/4. So anyway, also laying in bed in the morning is some of my most creative time. My eyes are really not ready to peel open, but my brain's awake and it's running. And that's when kind of in my brain, I'm running through sorts of things. And so what I've decided on this, for this project, I kind of came up with kind of a theme. One of the things I've been wanting to do is a 3-dimensional fabric house. For those of you who followed me for a long time, you know all of my Maple Street houses. If you haven't followed, you can go to my website at Laura Denison Designs, and that's Denison with 1 N. LauraDenisonDesigns.com. Also in the description is a link to it. And I have over 1 terabyte of videos that were recorded on my live streams. I did 10 years worth of live streams, like 3 days a week. And so I have 1 terabyte worth of videos over, and you just go into, it's under the archives is where the majority I think there's some in the classroom, but those are mainly paid for ones. So if you go to the archives tab on my website, like I said, I have a terabyte worth of videos, or 10 years worth of live streamed. So it's got a lot of chit chat and chatter on them, and sorry about that. But anyway, I used to do this series called the Maple Street, and they were all sorts of different shops and buildings and that sort of thing. But I wanted to do something like that with fairy houses, but I want to do them with fabric. So the box I'm going to make is going to be not perfected in my brain yet, but it's going to have more stitching and fabric stuff on it than it has the cardboard and paper like I've done in the past. But the idea of this thing then would be inside of this house, where I'm going to have multiple little booklets, signatures, tags, whatever. They're not all, this isn't the entire project. This is just one of them. So I have been thinking about this. And so each of the sections or signatures or whatever they, like I said, it could be as small as a tag. It could be a 2-page little signature pamphlet book type thing. So each of these sections is going to represent a room in the house. So, excuse me, for instance, or outside the house as the case may be. For instance, this one's going to be the garden, which is the outside yard area as you're coming to the house. So it's going to be very earthy with plants and flowers and that kind of images on the pages inside. So, and it makes sense that it might be this fatter, thicker one because, fairies, they live out in the woods, and this is kind of their garden. The other thoughts in terms of rooms are the kitchen is the heart of the home. So it can have a theme of hearts in the images that are in that one, whether it's a signature, that one, because it is a bigger component, probably is more of a signature type size. The parlor, which is a much more formal type of room, could be, it's much more structured or formal in its layout or its construction. The nursery playroom is potential, has bright and fun colors and shapes. It doesn't have to make it, this doesn't have to mean like the kitchen is going to have like kitchen imagery or something like that. It's just kind of gives an idea of, like I said, with hearts, it can be heart themes. So on the nursery and playroom doesn't mean it has to be child images or type things. It's just that it can be bright and fun colors. The bedroom, calm and serene and soft colors, kind of maybe it's more done in watercolors or something like that. The basement can be where I start bringing in some dark backgrounds or blacks and that sort of thing, and deep colors because it's kind of, dark down in the basement. And then the attic could potentially be, many times you find old things that have been put up in the attic. So that can be much more of a vintage feel to it. So each of the signatures, so moving forward here, like I called this one in its initial one, just the first booklet. Well, instead of a booklet, I'm going to call, these are going to be done by rooms. So this is going to be the garden room. So each of the signatures are going to be called rooms on this project, or each of the booklets, signatures, tags, like it could have a closet and the closet could just be a tag, So each of these parts that go inside of this box, which is going to be a fairy house, will be called a room. So that's kind of the idea of where it's going. So at this point, I've got, my preliminary stuff set up. So now I'm ready to start adding to both my paper pages and my fabric pages, starting adding some color, be it with paints or whatever I decide. So the next video, we'll be starting to look at things like color and that sort of thing and material. So we're going to be starting to use some of those fabric fodder techniques. So if you're following along with this project, if you've got a few minutes, you might want to go back and look at some of those fabric fodder videos. I think there's like 10 of them. The fabric fodder videos to kind of get an idea of what we're going to be doing in terms of with paints and inks and stencils and stamps and that sort of thing on our fabrics. So anyway, I'm super excited about this idea of each of the sections now being a room instead of a signature. So don't be confused in the future when I call them a room. So again, this is going to be the garden. So I hope you're as excited about this as I am, and I look forward to continuing on. Thanks a bunch.